Hey there, this is Angela Kennecke, and I just wanted to issue a warning before you listen to this podcast. We cover, of course, the very difficult subject of overdose, child loss, and we also cover the subject of suicide, suicide attempts, and suicidal thoughts. So please know, take caution as you listen to this episode and do what you need to take care of yourself. Your life dreams. Maybe they involve starting your own business, building a dream home, or nurturing a healthy marriage. For many, like Sandra Radford, the deepest dream is raising children.
All I wanted in my life leading up to that was children and family.
But what happens when, despite all of your hard work and dedication, those dreams come to a screeching halt?
I was trying to die.
You were trying to die.
I was trying.
Yet, despite all the heartache Sandra has suffered, she doesn't want her story to be defined by her struggles. Instead, she hopes it serves as an inspiration that even when facing your worst nightmares, you just keep dreaming. Welcome to Grieving Out Loud. I'm your host, Angela Kennecke. If you or a loved one is struggling with substance use disorder or depression, we want you to know that help is available. Please don't wait. You can dial 988 immediately, and you can also find a link of resources on our website, emily'shope.charity. We've posted a link in the show notes of this podcast. Sandra, welcome to Grieving Out Loud. It is really just a pleasure to connect with you, although your story is just so incredibly devastating, yet you want to offer other people hope. And I think that's why we're here today. We want to talk about that hope. But let's start off with a long time ago. What was it? More than 20 years ago when you first got pregnant with your children.
Right. I went through a 5-year journey of infertility. It was really gruesome. I had every test, surgery, everything there was. Finally, at that 4.5-year mark, our only option was to have in vitro. Financially, it wasn't something that we could think about prior to that. But then there was a doctor a couple towns over who offered it with no anesthesia. I said, it doesn't matter. Let's do this. Went through everything, and I could not believe that it actually worked the first time. This is one thing that I like to share with people is that I actually saw my 3 children be conceived in the Petri dish. They took out my eggs and they did that procedure and called me and said, you've got 3 perfect embryos. And we went on a Tuesday morning, so I went back Friday morning for the implantation. At first, they told me I was not pregnant. And then the nurse, she called me back. She said, I started to throw your test away and it turned just a little bit pink. So we think you're pregnant. Like, oh gosh, you think? I just took it as a beautiful sign and owned it and said, I'm pregnant. And yes, I was pregnant with triplets.
Sandra says the first few months of her pregnancy went smoothly, but at her 5-month appointment, she received devastating news. 2 of her babies had died.
But there was one strong heartbeat. And I said, okay, we're not going to be down about this. This is fabulous. We have one. And from that point forward, the pregnancy couldn't have been any better. It was terrific.
On March 3rd, 1994, Sandra gave birth to a beautiful little girl after a very difficult labor.
I had a 24-hour-long labor and ended up with emergency C-section. Actually, we both almost died. During the labor. And come to find out, the cord was wrapped around her neck twice so tightly that, time was of the essence. It was just a good thing they got her out when they did because she wasn't breathing. I just remember with all my might putting my hand on my husband's shoulder and pushing him to just go make sure she's okay. And we were one of the only couples that this doctor had delivered for that did not know the gender of the baby. I said, "We have gone through so much. I don't want to know. I would love to have a surprise." So she asked us to give the names. And so she said, "You got a Samantha Hope." And I couldn't be happier. But yeah, she was so very healthy, always very healthy.
So when did the trouble begin with Samantha Hope?
Her dad and I separated just before her fourth birthday. She was just an awesome kid. She adapted. It was really hard in the beginning, but she adapted really well.
But Sandra says that her daughter, Hope, who she always called by her middle name, started to struggle after her dad began a new relationship and had another baby. Hope was then diagnosed with ADHD in third grade, followed by bipolar disorder when she was 10.
But fast forward at age 13 is when my nephew gave her alcohol and marijuana for the first time. At age 13, shortly after that, is when one of my nephew's friends, 28-year-old, sexually assaulted her.
So she had the introduction of substances and then sexual abuse at that very tender age. And we know both of those things can set someone up for substance use disorder.
Like,
Did you know about the sexual assault or did you learn of it later?
not for 4 months. He told her that if she told anyone that he would kill me and my mother. I noticed a big change in her, but 13, thought it was teenage angst. Finally, she told me about it, and we were able to get him prosecuted, but she was reliant upon marijuana. She was self-medicating with that. And then at age 15, she got beat up very badly at school because she tried to intervene with a bully and took her to the emergency room. She had a concussion. She had fractured ribs, and they prescribed her Percocet.
Percocet at age 15. So her brain was already set up for substances by using the marijuana at such a young age. And then she's prescribed a powerful painkiller, an opioid, at age 15. Is that what led to her opioid addiction?
4 months later was her first overdose. I had no idea it was just after her 16th birthday. Took me 3 months, but I got her into a rehab facility, and she had such a great attitude. She said, "Mom, everything's going to be great." And it was. And she was great for a couple years. And then she had a breakup with a boyfriend, lost her job on the same day. And the very person who pumped her chest and kept her alive through that first overdose handed her a pain pill. One pain pill, and that's all it took.
At 18, Hope fell deep into addiction. First, she started abusing prescription painkillers and soon spiraled into a full blown heroin addiction.
She had gotten a job, met a boy there who, unbeknownst to us, was a heroin addict. And when they ran out of money for pills, and she was very, very dope sick. And he said, I know what can help us, but this is how you have to do it. And she said, "I don't care. Just anything to keep me from feeling how I'm feeling." And that's when the heroin began.
Within 2 months of trying heroin, 18-year-old Hope was not only grappling with severe substance use disorder, but she and her boyfriend also turned to stealing items to fund their addiction. After being caught, Hope was placed on probation.
And they told her just go to a couple meetings every week. There was really no type plan for her as far as therapy. This was one thing that really killed me, though, is that the therapist that she had had all those years, when Hope overdosed, she said, "I can't treat you anymore." So this was this friend that she had had for 10 years of her life, and she no longer could see her because she wasn't schooled in substance use. So that was a big blow to her as well.
Did she ever talk to you about her use? Was she honest with you? Did she tell you what was happening and why?
He did.
She did. That's one thing I have to say about my daughter is that there's a lot I didn't know that she didn't share with me because she was ashamed, I think, and worried about my reaction. I'm glad that you knew, but it sounds to me like Hope's life continued to spiral out of control.
Did. And their answer was to just put her in prison. If she can't pass a drug test, we're just gonna put her in prison.
We're not talking a county jail here, right? We're talking prison. How old
Yeah,
was she when she went to a women's prison?
19.
Just 19. And what do you think that did to her?
I just need to say that Hope was so brilliant. She's so intelligent. He didn't have, like, artistical talent. Her talents were with people, she was just a magnificent person. So we had really high hopes, and I guess not even 3 weeks passed, and she ended up using again. At one point, I just said, "Honey, why can't you just stop?" And she said, "Mom, I don't know. I fight it, and I fight it, and I fight it, and I get through, and I'm okay for a few weeks." And then, she said, "Something just makes me want it so bad that I cannot control that." And she came to me at 2 o'clock in the morning. She had brought herself off of them, and it had been close to 3 weeks. And she said, "Mom, I'm getting that feeling again. Can you find me somewhere to go?" And I called every place there was, and she met no one's criteria. So no one would take her. And within days, she was using again. No help out there for her.
For 3 years, Hope was in and out of prison, fighting her addiction. Sandra very vividly remembers one of the conversations she had with her daughter when she picked her up from prison.
On the way back, we got lost. I didn't know that she knew the way home. She had so much that she wanted to say to me. And my biggest takeaway was, "Mom, this is not your fault. Absolutely nothing that you have ever done caused me to start using drugs. And I need you to know that." And it was like a cleansing. Her future was right there. She was re-enrolling in college. She was gonna get a part-time job. I told her she didn't even have to work if she would, just go on to college. We spent 8 hours on what should have been a 2-hour drive getting home, but she did a lot of talking, I did a lot of listening, and I really believe that the Lord blessed me with that day.
While Sandra was optimistic about her daughter's future, unfortunately, life had other plans. At 22, Hope relapsed, and the combination of heroin and meth turned out to be deadly.
She had been clean for so long that the bottom line is that she just took too much.
And that is not unusual for someone who relapses to go back to a dose they previously took, but they can't handle it and they end up dying from overdose. That's not an unusual story. And I know, like, this is your only child. You've dedicated your life to her. She was so wanted. I know you were devastated.
Right. Her boyfriend was with her that night. They came in. She came over, hugged me, kissed me. "Good night, mama. See you in the morning." Excited about tomorrow. She was enrolling in college. He came out of the bedroom that morning, and I thought his behavior was off. I said, "Is she ready to go?" He said, "She's not awake yet," which was odd because she was always up early. I walk into the bedroom and I turned around and unbeknownst to me, he had apparently woke up to her being passed away. And he took the sheet and folded it down the middle of her back. And when I turned around and looked, I said, "What are those bruises on her?" And she still wasn't answering me. And I walked, and I was 3 feet away from her, and I could feel the cold radiating off her body. And I went to turn her over, and I was just, no, 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 no. It was too late. She died probably within 45 minutes after she kissed me goodnight.
How traumatic and how devastating. And the depths of your pain led you to use substances as well.
Yes, a year prior, I had had surgery on my right foot, and it didn't go well, and I ended up having to have another surgery, and I also had to work through all that, and I was a manager, so I was on my feet all day, and it was incredibly painful. So, at that time, I already had a prescription for opioids, and I couldn't take enough to take the pain away. He died on Monday. We got her back from Raleigh on Thursday. The service was on Sunday, and they expected me back to work on Wednesday. So I had a total of 9 days off. It's the age old story. You keep using, that dosage doesn't help. So you take more and more and more. And then I did the unthinkable and started having to fund my happiness in other ways, which led to criminal charges, and a conviction.
For theft? Was your conviction for theft? Right. So you were stealing. Were you getting pills off the streets?
Yes,
You were. Were you worried that you were going to also die, or did you not care because of the horrible grief of losing your daughter?
I was trying to die.
You were trying to die.
I was trying to.
This makes me so sad, Sandra, because I knew a mother whose son had died a few weeks before Emily, and she had tried to complete suicide a couple of times. She attempted suicide twice. I heard her talk about it in a court case, and she talked about it to me. And I had said, you're still here for a purpose. And she was, of course, devastated, as we all are, by the loss of our children. And then she ended up taking a deadly dose of fentanyl and dying shortly after that. I wrote a blog called Collateral Damage. It's on our website. But I was so devastated by that because I do think I know of another mother who drank herself to death after her son's overdose death. And I can understand why people would turn to substances themselves, even though that's what killed their child, because they don't really care, right? They don't want to live anymore. And they just want to be out of both, in your case, emotional and physical pain, right?
Yes, and there was so much pressure on me to be me. Both of my parents said, "I just want my Sandra back." No one would talk with me about hope. Everyone acted as though nothing happened and expected me just go on with life as if nothing happened. I went to a therapist, and he told me to pretend that she was in another country studying abroad at college.
Well,
I
that doesn't seem like very good advice. It sounds to me like you didn't get the right kind of help.
No, I said, "How am I supposed to get the image of that morning out of my mind?"
To make things even more difficult for Sandra, her 30-year-old stepson also died in 2021, with drugs playing a role in his death as well.
He had broken away from a relationship, and it was actually the day before my birthday, October 22nd, and he texted me early in the morning, and he said, I'm sitting down here in your field. I said, well, come in the house. And he was with Hope when she died. It was the first time that he was able to talk to me about her. And we spent the day talking about that type of thing that morning. And he said, I have got to go. I lost a piece off my motorcycle. I've got to go find it. I said, why don't you let me drive and you can look? He said, no, no, no. I really am feeling the need just to get out there and ride. And I said, okay. He said, but I'll be back in 45 minutes. He didn't come. And about 11 o'clock that night, I got a call that about 4 hours after he had left my house, he crashed his motorcycle into a tree at 100 miles an hour and it killed him. I later found out had just done a shot of fentanyl
Before the accident.
before the accident.
Despite her compound grief, Sandra did eventually get help, but not until after her fourth attempt to take her own life.
After my fourth attempt, I woke up. I mean, I had it down to a science, Angela. And I woke up the next morning and I felt better than I had in years. And I said, okay, God, enough of this. You have got to show me what you want me to do with the rest of my life because I don't know where to go from here. I don't know how to take another step forward. And about 2 to 3 days later, I was on Facebook, which I was not into social media at all back then. And I stumbled across Shatterproof.
Hmm. And we've had the founder of Shatterproof on this podcast, so I know a little bit about that organization. And what was it about Shatterproof that inspired you or gave you your hope back?
The support of the entire organization 24/7, no judgment, no stigma, just incredibly supportive. And it started giving me a direction and I founded Hope's Hope.
Have you lost a loved one to overdose or fentanyl poisoning? I'd like to invite you to share their story on our new Emily's Hope Memorial website called More Than Just a Number. They were our children, siblings, cousins, husbands, wives, aunts, uncles, and friends. So much more than just a number. You can submit a memorial today on morethanjustanumber.org. Sandra created Hope's Hope to raise awareness about substance use disorder and prevent drug overdoses. She also wants to offer support to others who are grieving.
And my first event was a 5K down in Atlanta. And it was just all so exciting. And then I also got to mentor another mom who had not only lost her husband, but her son within a short period of time. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is it. Hope's dream was to become a counselor and counsel at risk youth to help them avoid substance use disorder. And I thought, okay, I can do this. This is what I will do in her honor. I will carry her torch. And that is what I have been trying to do ever since.
At the same time, Sandra says she's managed to stop using opioids even without the help of medically assisted treatment. However, this is very difficult, and if you're suffering from opioid use disorder, you should seek help from an expert. Medically assisted treatment can be the very best path to take.
I do want to point out that I do not recommend that anybody try to come off of any type of opioid without some type of assistance because it is brutal. And it would have been so easy to just say, oh, please let me not hurt like this and take another pill. But I didn't. I didn't.
Wow.
Because that I was spoken to that day, the last time that I tried to suicide and got pointed in the right direction. So I knew it was just something I had to do.
What did
And
your experience with addiction make you understand about your daughter's experience with addiction?
I understood 100% why, because she too had pain that she was dealing with. Hers was her internal pain from the rape. Mine was physical, but then the pain of losing her that was a physical pain, not just emotional and mental. I hurt. I don't know how to explain it, but I hurt so bad that no amount, well, only large amounts would help. So, yes, it made me 100% understand what she went through. And it was almost as though it helped me get through, I lived everything she lived. And I better equipped to handle the rest of my future. And I have an understanding of why what happened did now because I was in such denial. I still have a lot of days when I just don't accept it that she's gone.
Even though Sandra still faces difficult days, she says her mental health has improved drastically. She no longer struggles with suicidal thoughts. Well, thank goodness. We know that that is a disease of the brain. We know that it is a mental illness, and certainly it can be brought on by circumstances. Not always, but it certainly can be. And I think that it's so hard to understand where the human mind is. I don't know that, everyone who is able to follow through that path really intends to die. I don't understand it's a horrible, dark place.
Just you want the pain to end so badly. And I didn't really feel that I had very much more to live for because all I wanted in my life leading up to that was children and family. And it took everything away from me. So I'm having to redefine my entire life as to what I want my future to be because find a purpose to live.
And have you found that purpose?
Yeah. And it's through advocating for overdose awareness and fentanyl poisoning prevention. I'm a member of several Facebook groups. Right now, the Drug Epidemic Memorial Wall, I decided to take on a project with them. I just get involved in anything that I can.
It strikes me that you would be a good peer support specialist as well, not only for grieving parents who've been through what we've been through, but also for people in recovery, for people in active addiction seeking recovery.
Right, because I have been through all of it.
You've been
And
through all of it.
man,
All of this, I mean, the grief and all of this loss, it can feel really depressing and really awful, right?
it does. It is. And it's something that every day I have to do my best to find purpose. And I do that. I honor hope. I do different videos, but I spend time with her every day. I'm actually writing a book and I did just sign with a publisher. I have to get this out. There's so much stigma around how she died that I want people to know Hope, the person, how she lived. I have an innate sadness that I don't believe will ever go away,
Can you live
but
with it?
manageable now. It's tolerable.
You can live with it.
I can live with it. And next month will be 8 years. And it's really hard. I mean, in March, she should have turned 30.
Yeah, I
And
understand that.
I see the girls, her friends, being married, having families of their own, and that's all Hope ever wanted. I did start college 2 years ago.
You did.
I did.
So
I'm
you're doing
stu
something that she wanted to do, but wasn't able to do.
I'm studying criminal justice with emphasis on forensics.
Along with studying criminal justice, Sandra hopes her story can inspire others struggling with substance use disorder to seek recovery, even though she knows it can be difficult.
There is only hard work in recovery, but it can happen. I need people to know that it can happen and it will happen. Yes, you have to put a lot of work into it, but the reward at the other end is phenomenal when you realize what you've overcome.
Well, you have overcome a tremendous amount. And on that note, we will wrap up this podcast. I wish you health and happiness and that you can continue to move forward in Hope's honor.
And that's what I am doing. That is my life's work now. And to raise awareness, because I don't want anybody else to feel this. I don't want anyone else to ever be me. This is the parent nightmare. So, but there is a glimmer of hope there.
Yep, that's what you have to keep alive is that glimmer of hope for others. You can't have it for your own child any longer, but you have to have it for other people's children.
Absolutely.
But together as moms, we're going to keep fighting this fight and hopefully save more lives. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been my honor.
And thank you for listening to this episode of Grieving Out Loud. If you found it helpful, please leave a positive review and share it with your family and friends. Join us again next week for a new episode. Until then, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wannenberg King and Michael Guerin. Are you ready to protect the next generation from the dangers of substance use? Emily's Hope has created a comprehensive K-12 substance use prevention curriculum designed to educate, empower, and equip students with the tools they need to make healthy choices. Our age-appropriate lessons start in kindergarten and build through high school, using science, real stories, and interactive learning to help kids understand their bodies, brains, and risk of drug use. We're already reaching thousands of students across multiple states, and we're just getting started. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and share our curriculum with your school administrators and counselors. At Emily's Hope, we believe prevention begins with education. Let's work together to keep our kids safe.